start with the genius of Oscar Hammerstein, and tonight's award in his name could not go to a more worthy recipient. Tonight, we also celebrate to honor the York Theater's longtime chairman of the board, W. David McCoy. David's contribution to the arts at large and his unwavering commitment and dedication to New York stands as an exemplary model of board leadership in the nonprofit world. This will be an evening to remember, and all in support of the York Theater Company.
I'm very pleased to be here this evening to represent the York's Board of Directors and to pay tribute to our two most deserving honorees, Alan Menken and David McCoy. On a personal note, I'm particularly delighted to have had the opportunity to work together alongside David McCoy for the past 6 years. In fact, David is the reason why my wife Margie and I first became involved with the York. It was his perseverance and persuasiveness that convinced us to take the time to learn about what the York Theater Company was and ultimately to join its board. David's leadership, his passion and dedication to the York, and his love of musical theater continue to be an inspiration to me and our other board members, and we all look forward to celebrating him tonight.
The other gentleman who is receiving the York Theater Company's Founders Award has been involved with York for nigh on to 38 years. He is an ally, a compatriot, a co-worker, a wonderful supporter, and patron. He's also the longtime chairman of the board and a loyal friend. He is David McCoy. David and his wife Millie first came to York in the mid-70s when we were up at the Church of the Heavenly Rest. He loved the shows, but complained to founder Janet Hayes Walker about the uncomfortable folding chairs. "Oh yes, I know what you mean," she said in that way she used with attractive men. "Could you help raise some money for cushions?" He said he would, and that Exxon, where he was an executive for over 30 years, would match what he gave. "That is wonderful," Janet replied. "Would you be on our board?" That is how it began, and how for all of these years, David has been an integral part of the York. I've said for years that we would not be here today if it weren't for David. He has given of himself unstintingly in innumerable ways. At times he has acted as a staff member, general manager, or development director. There were times when he even helped carpet the offices and painted the green room. It really was painted once, Stevie. He has attended hundreds of performances and readings around town, met with numerous funders and politicians, helped to raise money. He has ferreted out new board members and, yes, financially supported us in a pretty amazing way. Pretty amazing because while David has always made it clear he was not a big money kind of guy, he has always supported York with considerable generosity. 3 times in our history, though, he came into significant chunks of funding and happily had to offset them with charitable donations. Quite miraculously, they happened to coincide with York being in really dire circumstances. After the 3rd time, David said, "But you have to understand that cannot happen again. I will support the company as I always have, but the Bank of David is closed." David and I have learned together, experienced joys and triumphs together, and some missteps as well. But with David, you learn it's all about keeping your sense of humor and your eye on the goal and remaining optimistic. And if you do all of these things, much of what you were trying for can be achieved. A point of honor with him is that he has never meddled in the artistic end of things. He has his opinions, but he has always said that he and the board should stay out of that. But David loves musical theater and the people who create it, and he believes passionately in our mission. He should, because he helped write it. A few years back, a friend of his in Florida invited him to come watch her play croquet. She told him that a lot of rich people play croquet and maybe he would find some patrons for York. He went, became fascinated, and within 3 years was a nationally ranked croquet player. He is now the president of the Croquet Foundation of America and has been nominated for the Croquet Hall of Fame in 2014.
When you've got a friend like Dave.
But what we mean is, when you've got a Dave like our Dave.
Isn't it warm? Isn't it charming? Side by side.
Isn't he a
With
cute?
Dave are born in a storm, so tall it's alarming.
He never loses his cool.
Have you ever seen him lose at croquet?
Never admits he's beat. Side by
We're
side.
just so fond of him.
Never commits defeat. Love him, can't get enough of him when he's in dough. His outlook is sunny.
He has a dream.
He's a party hall.
Just watch him glow when he gets the money.
Or maybe enter laughing on Broadway.
By side, he stays focused and full of hope, and his chutzpah kept the York open. Side by side, by side.
Next to his wife Millie, his son, his daughter-in-law, and his grandchildren, there's nothing in the world he loves more than musicals. Unless it's croquet.
It's amazing he's straight.
He's part of the metrosexual subculture of straight men addicted to musical theater. They're called shomos.
Full of good wishes, what he starts, he finishes. Year after year, never gets older.
It's amazing. We seem to be getting older every year, and he seems to stay exactly the same.
Sharing a tear, lending a shoulder.
You know what comes to my mind when I think of him? The City Court building.
You mean the Bank of David?
I heard it was closed.
Really?
Ain't we got fun? No
You
strain.
know it's terminally allergic to exercise? There's no cure.
Except croquet.
Permanent sun, no rain. We're so crazy, he's so sane. Remaining serene, he's not a stressor.
Whenever things look bleak and it seems like a show's never going to be ready on time, David knows things will work out.
Because they always do.
Sometimes a shrink or father confessor.
It just amazes him. It's just a mystery.
Well, to us the mystery is, how does he do it?
With voice so soothing, he's so adored. He's our old blue eyes chairman of the board. He's
He should be canonized a patron saint of not-for-profit.
church without a steeple. Open the doors and see all the theater's grateful people. What would we do without you? How would we ever get through? Who with all his poems and questions bought us some new cushions when his blood was blue? Who watched New York as it grew? Who cheers us up when we're blue? Who is sincere and who is so deep? Who always works around the clock when he needs to sleep? How would we ever get through? What would we do without you?
He'd like to commission a croquet musical and call it Wicket.
What would we do without you? How would we ever get through? Who would we complain to for hours? Who has superpowers to see the long view? Who is our rock and our glue? Who drinks the most of a few? Who is so safe and who is so sound? Who dreams to see us in a space way up above ground? How would we
Mr. David McCoy. As wonderful and devoted a man as any theater company could ever hope to have. His dedication is just to this unique company is one of a kind. You're going to hear a lot about it all evening long. But I just want to give one example, which is that many boards, you may have all had the experience, many boards of organization will instigate matching grants, challenge grants, but in my experience, the only time that not a board, but a board president personally put himself out there to do the match was for the last few years, David McCoy has done that. And as far as I know, he's the only board president ever to put himself in that position. A very dangerous position to put himself in. And I was happy to rise to the York's and to David's generous offer on a few occasions myself. He's one of a kind, and now it is with great pride and celebration that we, Jim and I, present for his incomparable dedication and support of the York Theatre Company, and for only the second time in the company's history, the York Theatre Company Founders Award to David McCoy.
Oh my God. I think I may have a Boehner moment. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Ted. I'm really deeply touched by your remarks. Jim, you and I have been on this journey together for 37 years. We both pledged to Janet Hayes Walker, our founder, when she knew she was failing, that we would keep her company going. I know she'd be thrilled at what we've achieved with the help of our board and our many supporters. I'm also moved by the obvious effort that you and Andrew and Hannah and the staff made to make sure that this was a very special evening for me, and I assure you that it worked. In addition, I'd like to say that I've been rewarded by York even before tonight. I was rewarded by the massive body of musical theater that you and the staff produced over these years. I was rewarded by seeing the development of thousands of talented people who helped create York shows and who were in turn helped by you and York in their careers. And I was rewarded by observing the joy those shows brought to our audiences and to me. It's been a long and challenging journey to stay true to our costly mission, but the results have made the journey well worthwhile. Musical theater, a uniquely American art form, deserves our support, and you have my support for as long as it's needed. And that's because it's relatively, despite York's relatively modest facilities, no other theater company is doing as much for musical theater and its creators as York does. Finally, I want to thank my family and friends that came tonight to support me, many from very long distances. I especially want to thank a couple of people for putting up with me for the years of work I spent on the computer, on the phone, at the theater, often at the expense of our time together. And that would be my son Daniel, who got up at the crack of dawn in -8-degree weather, Laramie, Wyoming, this morning to learn of his plane's engine wouldn't start. He had to drive through a blizzard with 50-mile-an-hour winds, 2 hours, over 2 hours to Denver to catch a different flight to be here. Thank you, Dan, for joining us.
I don't care how far I can go the distance till I find my heroes welcome
Ready to know why the people grow. Ask my questions and get some answers. What's a fire and why does it? What's the word?
How does she know that you love her? How do you show her you love her? How does she know that you're really, really true?